It was supposed to be a celebration. My 62nd birthday. Nothing extravagant. Just a long table at my favorite little Italian restaurant with soft string lights overhead, mismatched chairs, and that cinnamon-scented wine they only serve in December. I'd asked for something simple. Dinner with my daughter, her fiancé, and a few friends from church. Some laughter, a plate of gnocchi, maybe a candle stuck into a slice of tiramisu. That was all. Instead, I got blindsided. It started like any ordinary evening. The place was warm with conversation. The waitress brought extra bread without us asking. I just unwrapped a sweater for Marcy, the kind with those big buttons I love, when Clara, my daughter, raised her glass. "Before we eat," she said, standing up, "I want to make a little announcement." I smiled, proud. She'd always been shy, never liked the spotlight. So seeing her speak up like that, it warmed me. Her fiancé, Alex, stood beside her and looped his arm around her waist. "We just wanted to thank you, Mom," Clara said, tears glassing over her eyes. "For everything. Your support, your guidance, and now your gift." Everyone turned to me. I blinked. What gift? I laughed nervously, glancing around the table. Alex beamed. "We're so excited to start our next chapter. Thanks to you, we'll finally have a home big enough to raise our family." My fingers tightened around the stem of my wine glass. Clara added, "It means so much that you're letting us take over the house. We'll take good care of it. Promise." The room froze. I heard forks pause mid-scrape. Someone gasped quietly, "Marcy, maybe." My heart pounded so loud it drowned everything else out, letting them take over the house. The house where I had lived for 35 years? The house with the dented baseboards from Clara's tricycle? The house my husband built a garden behind before the cancer took him? I hadn't said yes. I hadn't even known they'd asked. I opened my mouth to speak, but Alex clinked his glass. "A toast to new beginnings," he said. "And to Donna, the most generous mother and future grandma we could ever ask for." The word grandma made my stomach twist. Clara pulled something from her purse, a tiny pair of crocheted booties tied with a pink ribbon. She set them on the table in front of me like some magical offering. "I'm 8 weeks," she said, her voice trembling. We wanted to wait, but tonight felt right. The table erupted into applause. Except for me. I sat frozen, my fingers cold despite the wine. I forced a smile, nodded once, and swallowed the lump in my throat like it was bone-dry bread. I waited until dessert. Tiramisu. No candle. I stood and said I had a headache. Clara tried to walk me to the car, but I told her I'd call a cab. I needed air. I needed space. I needed to think. I walked 6 blocks in the wrong shoes. The wind cut through my coat, and by the time I got home, my legs ached and my mind raced. I climbed the porch steps, unlocked the door, and stepped into the warmth of my house. My house. It smelled like lavender and old books. My husband's photo greeted me from the entryway table. They said I gave them the house. I hadn't. I turned on the kitchen light and pulled out the drawer where I kept our legal papers. Insurance, wills, property deeds. My hand shook as I flipped through them. Then I saw it. A document I'd signed a year ago when I was in the hospital after a fall. Clara had rushed over with forms from the bank, said it was to help her manage things while I was recovering. It had my signature. Clara's name under, power of attorney, temporary. Temporary. But when I called my lawyer the next morning, her tone was clipped. "If you didn't formally revoke it, Donna, it may still be active." I sat in silence while she explained what Clara could do with it. If a doctor says you're mentally unfit, even without a diagnosis, they can act on your behalf. Sell your home, transfer funds, make medical decisions. If challenged, it becomes your word against a paper trail. "But I'm not unfit," I whispered. "You'd need to prove that." I ended the call and stared at my reflection in the microwave door. My daughter. My only child. The person I'd raised, fed, fought for. She hadn't asked. She hadn't even hinted. She'd announced. To friends. To strangers. On my birthday, I turned on my phone and checked social media. There it was. A video posted by Clara. Slow pans of my living room. A caption. Stepping into our future. Grateful beyond words. Hashtag generational gift. Hashtag blessed. The comments poured in. What a generous mom. She must be so excited to be a grandma. Such a beautiful transition. Transition. As if I were being phased out. I went to the window and stared into the darkness of the backyard. The garden Alex said they'd turn into a play area. A play area. For a child that might not even exist yet. That night, I didn't sleep. I packed 3 boxes. One with photos. One with documents. One with everything I didn't want Clara to touch. And I made a list. A long one. Every dollar I'd spent for her. Every favor I'd done. Every moment I'd covered, forgiven, supported. Then I wrote one sentence at the bottom. They think I'm done, but I'm just getting started. Before we continue, take a moment to let me know where you're watching from in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe to more powerful stories like this one. I woke the next morning to the sound of my back gate creaking. It was 6:47 a.m. The sun hadn't fully risen, but I was already dressed. I hadn't slept, not really. My nerves were raw, and the cold air felt like static on my skin. I padded quietly into the kitchen and peered through the curtain. Alex. He had my spare key. He wasn't even trying to be stealthy, just walked right into the yard like he belonged there. He paused near the garden, kicked at a broken flower pot, then glanced toward the house, completely unaware I was watching. I opened the back door. Looking for something? He jolted. Spun around with that phony grin he always used when he didn't know if I was mad or confused. Morning, Donna. Sorry, I didn't want to wake you. Just came by to, measure the shed. I crossed my arms. Why? He blinked. For the stroller. And maybe a bike rack. Clara thought it'd be smart to convert the space early. I stepped out onto the porch, barefoot, the cold slapping against my toes. You need to text before showing up. He held up his hands, mock surrender. Totally fair. Just trying to be helpful. I pointed at the key in his hand. Where did you get that? He looked at it like it had just appeared there. Clara had it. From before. You gave it to her when you were sick last year, remember? I didn't. Or maybe I had. Back then, I was groggy from antibiotics, in and out of bed for days. Clara had made me soup, fluffed my pillows, offered to take care of things. Maybe I did hand her the key. Maybe. But that wasn't the point anymore. I want it back, I said. He hesitated. Really? I didn't blink. Now. He slid it off his keyring slowly, like I'd just insulted him. When he handed it over, his fingers lingered like he wanted to say more. But I'd already turned to go back inside. I locked the door behind me, then double-locked it. And for the first time in my life, I set a kitchen chair against the handle. By noon, Clara called. I didn't answer. She left a voicemail. Hey, Mom. Alex said you were kind of weird this morning? I hope everything's okay. I know things moved fast, but we're just so excited. You've always said family comes first. Call me. I didn't. Instead, I started making copies. Documents. Emails. Screenshots. Every interaction since the dinner. I forwarded everything to my lawyer with the subject line, Protective File, Donna. Around 3 p.m., a package arrived. No note. No label. Just a manila envelope, hand-delivered by a courier. Inside, a draft deed transfer agreement. It already had Clara's and Alex's names typed into the transferee section. My name was in the current owner field. The only blank line was for my signature. The nerve. There was a post-it on the front. Thought we could finalize this before the second trimester starts. So grateful. See, second trimester? Clara wasn't even showing. She hadn't posted any updates. No doctor's confirmation. No photos. Nothing. I opened my laptop, searched her name and the pregnancy app she'd once mentioned. In less than a minute, I found it, the same sonogram photo from her birthday announcement, available as a generic template on the homepage. She had lied. There was no baby. No due date. No prenatal vitamins needed. Just pressure. Leverage. Theater. And I had just seen the script. The next morning, I called the locksmith. "I want the locks changed today," I said. He hesitated. "Do you have legal authority over the property?" I almost laughed. "I own the house." He showed up an hour later. By noon, all 3 doors had new keys. While he worked, I packed a suitcase, not to leave, but to send a message. I set it beside the door, zipped halfway open like I was heading somewhere. I wasn't. Not yet. But I wanted Clara to wonder. She came by unannounced that evening. 7:10 p.m. knocked like she was already home. I answered in my robe, holding a cup of tea I didn't intend to drink. She stepped inside without asking. "Mom, we need to talk." I didn't move. "Then talk." She blinked, startled by my coldness. "I feel like you're lashing out," she said. "You're stressed, I get it. But Alex and I are trying to build something. You should be proud." "Proud of what?" "A fake pregnancy and a real deed theft." Her mouth dropped open. I walked to the kitchen, pulled the manila envelope from a drawer, and slapped it onto the counter. "You didn't even have the decency to ask." She tried to speak, but I held up a hand. "You want this house? Then you'll have to take it the hard way." Silence. Then her eyes narrowed. "What does that mean?" "It means I've already revoked your power of attorney. I've frozen all shared accounts. I've contacted my lawyer, and from this moment forward, nothing involving you or Alex will be signed, agreed to, or assumed, unless it's through formal legal channels." Her face flushed red. "You're overreacting." I leaned in. "You're overreaching," she scoffed. "You'd really evict your own daughter over a house?" "No," I said. "I'm evicting her before she even moves in." That night, I stood on the back porch in the cold and looked out at the garden. In my head, I replayed every moment I'd been quiet. Every time I'd swallowed discomfort, nodded along, let things slide. That version of me was gone. The one standing now? She was ready. Ready for the fight they thought I'd never dare to start. And they had no idea how much I'd already prepared. It started with a post. A grainy photo of Clara standing in my driveway, her hand protectively resting on her belly, backlit by the setting sun. The caption read, "Sometimes, you give your whole heart to someone and they slam the door in your face. But we're strong. We'll find our home. For us and for her." #pregnant and homeless. 3,000 likes. Hundreds of comments. All strangers. Unbelievable. What kind of mom kicks out her pregnant daughter? She should be ashamed. Sending prayers, mama. You've got this. I didn't find the post. Marcy did. She called me, voice trembling with fury. "Is any of this true?" I didn't answer right away. I was standing in my living room, staring at the very spot Clara had once dropped her first tooth, now freshly mopped, wiped down, and scrubbed of memory. "No," I finally said. "It's not." Marcy exhaled sharply. "You need to say something." "No," I said again, this time firmer. "I need to do something." Clara wasn't trying to win my house. She was trying to win the story of it. And once people believe a story, no matter how false, it becomes its own kind of truth. Especially if you stay silent. So I didn't stay silent. But I didn't post a video either. I filed a cease and desist. My lawyer drafted the letter. Terse. Surgical. Direct. Any future representations, false claims, or public implications of ongoing property transfer, pregnancy-related displacement, or familial abuse will be considered defamation, coercion, and legal intimidation. Cease all public narrative leveraging my identity, property, and medical history immediately. We had it hand-delivered to Clara and Alex's apartment. They posted another video that night, just music over a black screen. White text faded in and out. We were told to stop telling our truth. But truth doesn't need permission. The comments doubled. So I made my move. I didn't go online. I went offline. To the building board. The condo association hadn't heard a word from me in over a decade. I rarely used the amenities. I paid my dues early. I waved politely at meetings, then left before anyone could ask me to serve on a committee. But that day, I walked into the office with a binder in my arms. "Is there a place I can speak privately?" I asked. The director, a wiry woman named Pam, blinked behind her bifocals and nodded toward the conference room. For the next hour, I laid out everything. The unauthorized key use, the social media videos, the forged narrative, the false pregnancy. Pam took notes like a stenographer. When I showed her the screenshot of Clara inside my house without permission, pointing at walls and drawers and staging furniture ideas, her eyes narrowed. "This violates half a dozen occupancy policies," she said, flipping pages in the handbook she probably hadn't opened in years. I nodded. "That's why I'm requesting a formal restriction. No access granted to Clara Jameson or Alexander Reyes under any circumstance. I want a written record filed with building security. If they come near the property, it should trigger immediate notice." Pam hesitated. "That's serious, Donna. Are you sure?" I met her eyes. "I'm past sure." She slid a form across the table. I signed it. The next evening, I started getting texts from numbers I didn't recognize. Blocked numbers. Random accounts. "She's your daughter. How can you be so cruel? Imagine doing this to a pregnant woman. This house is cursed if you don't let it be filled with love again." I forwarded every one to my lawyer. She created a case file titled Narrative Harassment. Then I made a decision. If they were going to push the story of a cruel, unstable old woman refusing to make room for the next generation, I'd show them exactly how stable I was. I booked a psychological evaluation. Not because I had to, because I wanted the record. Dr. Kumar, a quiet man with kind eyes who offered me coffee during the intake. He asked questions, ran memory recall tests, executive function tasks, emotional check-ins. At the end of the session, he said, "Would you like me to summarize my impressions?" "Yes," I said. "You are cognitively sharp, emotionally anchored, and clearly under prolonged stress due to external manipulation. But your faculties are intact." He handed me a signed document. I folded it neatly and placed it in my lockbox. Clara showed up again 2 days later. She didn't knock this time, just stood outside, holding a single rose in one hand and a crumpled piece of paper in the other. I cracked the window slightly. She looked up. Her cheeks were flushed, not from cold, but embarrassment. "I didn't post those things," she said quickly. "Alex did. I didn't even know he used my account." I didn't respond. She held up the flower. "Can we talk? Just us." I scanned her. No pregnancy glow, no morning sickness signs. Just practice softness. Strategic sorrow. "What's the paper?" I asked. "A letter," she said. "For you. From the heart." I didn't take it. Instead, I reached behind me and pressed record on my phone. "Say what you came to say," I told her. She hesitated. Then her face hardened slightly. "You know this is all unnecessary. You're making this so much harder than it needs to be. All we ever wanted was to build a life, with your blessing." "You mean without my consent?" "It's the same thing." That was it. That was the moment I knew I wasn't dealing with confusion. I was dealing with entitlement. Entitlement dressed in baby pink. She left the rose on the porch railing, tucked the letter beneath it, and walked away. I didn't touch either. Instead, I filmed them both. Then deleted the footage and told myself, they don't get to control the beginning, the middle, or the end. Not anymore. This wasn't just a property dispute. This was a reclamation. And I wasn't handing over one more inch. The letter sat untouched on the porch for 3 days. It rained on the second day. The ink ran a little. I didn't move it, didn't open it. I left it there on purpose, wilting like the rose beside it, both symbols of what this situation really was. Not love. Manipulation dressed up like sentiment. By the 4th day, I placed both in a clear evidence sleeve and slid them into my binder, the one I'd started labeling Operations Protection Plan. I wasn't just collecting documents anymore. I was building a case. Because Clara and Alex hadn't stopped. They'd just shifted tactics. The next shift came via my neighbor, Mr. Edmonds. Quiet man, late 70s, sharp as a tack. He knocked on my door around noon wearing a thick wool sweater and a look of concern. "Hope this isn't intrusive," he said, "but I saw your daughter here again the other night. Around midnight." My breath hitched. "Here?" He nodded. "I was out walking the dog. Saw her and her fiancé parked outside the gate. They didn't come in, just stood there, talking, looking up at your window. Then they drove off. Looked like they were arguing." I didn't ask why he told me. I just nodded, because somewhere deep in my gut, I already knew why. Clara was hoping I'd break the silence, that I'd reach out. But silence is only a weapon when you learn how to sharpen it. That night, I started my offensive. I pulled out an old cardboard box labeled Tax Docs, 2012 to 2016. Inside were years of receipts, transaction summaries, and donation slips, boring paperwork until you realize what it proves. My financial support for Clara, tuition payments, medical bill coverage, IVF clinic consultation payments, payments for a pregnancy that had never happened. I highlighted them all. Every check copy, every wire transfer. I added it to the binder. Then I logged into my security camera portal, the small one I'd installed a year ago just above the back gate after a string of break-ins in the neighborhood. They didn't know it existed. I found the footage from the night Clara and Alex were outside. No sound, just grainy night vision of them standing in the dark, Alex waving his hands, Clara pacing. At one point, she pointed up, toward my bedroom window. I downloaded the video, clipped it to a 60-second segment, and labeled it "Attempted Night Visit. Uninvited, 12:41 a.m. I didn't send it to them. I sent it to my lawyer. 2 days later, I received a letter via certified mail. Not from Clara. From a law firm in town, one I knew well. Big. Expensive. The kind people use to intimidate. It was a notice of intent to pursue transitional custodial authority. My blood ran cold. The document claimed that Clara and Alex were concerned about my recent behavior, that they feared I might be declining in capacity, that I was refusing reasonable family involvement, and that multiple attempts to reach me had gone ignored. It wasn't a formal guardianship petition, but it was a threat, a shot across the bow. They were laying groundwork, planting a seed of doubt in legal soil, hoping to grow it into power. I called my lawyer immediately. She sighed the moment I read her the headline. "They're testing how far they can push you," she said. "If you don't act, they'll escalate." "I want to file first," I said. "Before they do." "File what?" "A declaration of autonomy," I said. "Whatever the legal version is. I want documentation that I'm not incapacitated, that I'm not confused. I want paper proof, filed, time-stamped, and bulletproof." She was silent for a second. Then, "Let's get to work." We spent the next 48 hours assembling my response. I completed a second psychological assessment, this time from a clinical neurologist. I had my general physician provide a medical letter affirming my full independence and mental clarity. I signed a statement under penalty of perjury that no property agreements had ever been made or promised to Clara or Alex. And finally, we drafted a notice of reinstated sole property ownership, a declaration sent to the county clerk, formally stating that no transfer, sale, or shared agreement existed or was intended, revoking any informal discussions or past authorizations, including anything spoken or implied at that dinner. It was meticulous, legal, strategic, unapologetically final. That evening, I received an email from Alex. Subject: "We can still work this out. Donna, this doesn't have to be ugly. We understand you're overwhelmed, and that's okay. No one's blaming you. But dragging lawyers into this will only cause stress for all of us. You always said families should talk things through. Clara's heartbroken. I'm asking you one last time, let's just sit down and talk like adults, before this becomes something we can't undo." Attached was a PDF titled Revised Cohabitation and Property Usage Agreement, Draft 2. Inside, I saw it. Their new plan. They no longer wanted ownership. Not directly. They were now offering to live with me temporarily, to support me, to cohabitate until such time a generational transfer makes sense. Generational transfer. As if I were a family heirloom, waiting to be passed down. I didn't reply. Instead, I printed the email, added it to the binder, and wrote one note in the margin. New tactic, infiltration. Because now it wasn't about taking the house. It was about moving in until I disappeared. That weekend, I hosted Marcy and Mr. Edmonds for coffee. They didn't ask questions, didn't press. They just chatted about books, TV shows, and church gossip. When they left, Marcy turned at the door and said gently, "You're not alone, you know." I smiled. I know, but I still double-locked the door that night. Still checked the cameras. Still whispered to the shadows, "Not yet. Not ever." Because I had a plan. I was going to make them show their hand. And when they did, I'd make sure the entire table saw it. I left the binder on the kitchen table that morning, open, deliberate like bait. Inside it were printed documents, photos, receipts, and legal letters. Nothing marked confidential. Nothing technically damaging. But all of it real. All of it proof that I was ready for war. And then I waited. Because Clara had texted that morning. "We're stopping by around 4 with some things for the baby. Just for the porch. Hope that's okay." No question mark. Just that same, sugary assertion wrapped in politeness. I didn't reply. I simply turned on the security cameras and made a fresh pot of coffee. I was in no rush. I had everything I needed, including patience. At exactly 4:12 p.m., the gate buzzed. I didn't answer. I just watched from the front window as Clara and Alex walked up the path, both wearing that overly rehearsed look of concerned happiness they thought passed for innocence. Clara carried a small white bag. Alex carried a clipboard. He always brought props when he wanted to appear legitimate. They didn't knock. They just stood there waiting. Eventually, I opened the door halfway. Clara smiled immediately. "Hi, Mom. You look lovely today." I said nothing. "We just wanted to drop off a few baby things," she continued. "No pressure. Just wanted to include you." Alex stepped forward. "Also thought we could give the place a walkthrough just to get a sense of what needs adjusting. Clara's OB said we should be minimizing clutter before the second trimester." Still with the fake pregnancy. Still no bump. Still no appointment receipts. Still no due date. But I smiled then. Not because I believed her. Because I needed them to feel comfortable. Confident. Bold enough to do what I suspected they came to do. "Come in," I said. Clara's eyes lit up. She walked inside like it had always been hers. Alex followed, and the moment the door clicked shut, I watched their entire posture change. Less polite. More assured. They weren't visiting. They were casing the place. Clara started with the living room. She touched everything. Moved pillows. Looked behind curtains. Made notes on her phone. Alex measured the wall beneath the window. "For the crib," he said without looking at me. I stood behind them, silent, watching. In the hallway, Clara opened the linen closet. "These shelves will have to go. Too high. Unsafe." In the kitchen, Alex commented on the stove. "Probably needs updating. Gas lines are risky with kids." Risky. It's the same stove I cooked every one of Clara's childhood meals on. The same one I made Alex's engagement dinner with. But now it was suddenly unfit. Hazardous. They were already stripping the place of memory. In the bathroom, Clara frowned. "This tile is slippery. We'll need to red drought before I'm too far along." Still no proof of pregnancy. Still the same smooth stomach. Still the same lies. But the piece de resistance came when they entered my bedroom. Clara paused at the threshold. "We'll, of course, give you plenty of time to pack." I raised an eyebrow. "Excuse me?" She smiled sweetly. "Once escrow is set up. We're working with a loan officer already. The draft deed is nearly ready. You'll be on the paperwork, of course, for now." Alex added, "But we'll file a formal occupancy transition document. Once the baby's born, we'll revisit full ownership. The attorney said it's common in generational transfers." I nodded slowly. "And who exactly told you I agreed to this transfer?" Clara laughed. "Well, I mean, we've all talked about it. You've never said no." Alex chimed in, and at dinner, when we announced it, you smiled. "There's video. Everyone saw it. There it was. Not just a plan. A trap. They were collecting reaction as consent, building a fake narrative that I'd verbally or emotionally agreed to this handoff. But they'd just made a mistake. Because I'd recorded this visit. Every word. And now, I had something better than silence. I had proof of their assumptions. Their overreach. Their weaponization of she didn't say no. Before they left, Clara wandered back into the kitchen. She saw the binder. "What's this?" she asked. I didn't answer. She flipped it open, curious. Her eyes scanned the documents. The receipts. The highlighted texts. The screenshots of her homeless pregnant woman posts. The lie exposed. She went pale. She closed it quickly and looked up at me, suddenly guarded. It's just a misunderstanding, Mom. We never meant to hurt you. We're just trying to start our family." I tilted my head. "And that means erasing mine?" She said nothing. Alex returned from the hallway. "We should get going." "Traffic." Clara nodded, flustered. "Of course. Just think about the binder, okay? Maybe we could. I don't know, talk again soon." I opened the door for them and said nothing. That night, I added the recording to my legal file. Labeled Unauthorized Home Tour, Implied Ownership Language, Verbal Confirmation of Escrow Intentions. I also drafted a statement of fact, a first-person narrative, time-stamped and notarized, detailing the visit and every manipulative sentence uttered within my walls. The next morning, I mailed it certified to my lawyer and 2 neutral parties. 1 copy to the condo board, 1 to my safe deposit box. I wasn't just building a case anymore. I was building a wall, one they wouldn't scale, one built out of truth. Because they wanted the house? Fine. They could have the story instead. The real one. But I would be the one telling it. And it wouldn't end with a nursery. It would end with a courtroom, a judgment, and the complete unraveling of every lie they'd ever rehearsed. It dropped on a Tuesday. I was watering my balcony plants, sipping lukewarm coffee, when my phone buzzed with a notification from a friend I hadn't spoken to in months. "Have you seen what Clara posted?" "I'm so sorry." I didn't respond right away. I set the watering can down, wiped my hands, and opened Instagram. There it was. A reel. Just under 90 seconds. The first frame. Clara sitting cross-legged on a plush white rug, holding the same fake sonogram photo in her lap, a soft instrumental piano track swelling beneath her voice. We never wanted to share this publicly, but sometimes silence hurts more. Cut to a still shot of my front door. Closed, curtains drawn. We tried. We begged. But she wouldn't even let us in. Then Alex's voice, off-screen. "We were supposed to build our family here. She promised. Now we're being erased." The video cut between shots of baby items, booties, books, a crib they had clearly staged in their apartment, and vague emotional narration. No names. No hard accusations. Just loaded phrases like betrayal, mental decline, emotional eviction. The final shot, Clara wiping a tear, whispering, "We just wanted to make her proud." Caption. "Sometimes the people you trust the most rewrite the will before you even die." Hashtag family shouldn't hurt, hashtag legacy lost, hashtag protect our peace. It had over 9,000 views within 2 hours. Hundreds of comments. "She's emotionally abusive. Typical older generation, greedy and bitter. This breaks my heart. Sending baby gifts your way." I didn't cry, but I felt it like a gut punch wrapped in velvet. They weren't just coming for my house. They were rewriting me, turning me from mother to villain, from legacy to liability. And for some people, it was working. By evening, the calls started. From cousins I hadn't heard from in years. From a pastor's wife I once hosted for dinner. From Clara's former teacher, of all people. All with the same undertone. "We just want to understand what's happening." Translation. "We saw the video. We think you might be the problem." I didn't argue. I simply said, "There's another side to this. And when I'm ready, I'll tell it." Then I hung up. Because I wasn't ready. Not to explain. Not to plead. I was preparing. That night, I opened the drawer where I kept old photo albums, real ones, not digital. I flipped through the years. Clara at 2, sticky fingers clutching cake. Clara at 10, awkward embraces. Clara at 18, in her cap and gown while I sobbed in the back row. Then something caught my eye. A page, slightly loose from overhandling. A photo of Clara and Alex's engagement dinner in my home. Behind them, the bookshelf my late husband built. On it, visible in the corner, a small porcelain elephant. Why did that matter? Because in the reel Clara posted, she showed the same bookshelf, stripped bare. But the elephant? Still there. Same position. Same tilt. Which meant one thing. The crib room in the video was not their apartment. They had filmed it in my house. Without permission. I checked the footage from the security camera. And there it was. A day after I'd gone to the pharmacy for my blood pressure meds, gone for 45 minutes, they had used a duplicate key. Walked in. Filmed. Left. No message. No trace. Until the video. I clipped the security footage. Matched the timestamps. Cross-referenced it with the Instagram upload. Then I called my lawyer. She answered with, "I saw the video. I have proof it was filmed in my home," I said. Silence. Then, "Send everything. We're filing." 2 days later, a formal trespassing complaint was submitted. Not a criminal charge yet. Just enough to trigger an official warning through Clara's legal counsel. But more importantly, we prepared a public cease and desist, demanding the immediate removal of the video and a formal retraction. We didn't serve it privately. We posted it publicly. My lawyer created a basic web page with a clean PDF outlining the timeline of events. The fake pregnancy, with public app stock images cited. The forged narrative of a gifted home. The medical documents affirming my mental soundness. The trespassing timestamp, with clear stills from both my security cam and the footage they used. We didn't add commentary. No venom. No accusations. Just the facts. Then, we quietly shared the link with a few people. People Clara had manipulated. People who had commented on the video. By the end of the week, things started changing. Clara took the video down. Alex posted a vague story about protecting our peace and stepping away from social media negativity. They didn't apologize, but they retreated. And retreat always precedes collapse. Marcy visited that night. She brought wine and fury. "I knew something was off," she said. "I just didn't want to believe it. Clara always seemed so put together." "She is," I said. "That's the danger." She raised her glass. To being underestimated. We clinked glasses. But I didn't smile. Because I knew they weren't finished. A retreat is not surrender. It's recalibration. And I needed to be ready for their next move. So that night, I made one of my own. I scheduled an appointment with a notary. And I rewrote my will. Not out of spite. Out of strategy. I created a new clause. Anyone who publicly defames me or leverages my health, identity, or property in a legal or social narrative forfeits all claims to inheritance. Retroactively. Irrevocably. And I made sure Clara's name was printed on page 1 of the list. The letter came on a Thursday. Cream-colored envelope. Gold trim. Embossed lettering. The kind of formal mail that tries to look elegant, even when it's meant to wound. Inside. Notice of Preliminary Review for Emergency Adult Guardianship. Filed by Clara Jameson and Alexander Reyes. Requested on the basis of sustained cognitive instability, irrational behavior, and isolation from family support. Attached were 2 affidavits, one from Clara, one from Alex, both filled with long, careful sentences that made me sound unstable, paranoid, and confused. They referenced the dinner. The confusing things I'd said. The supposed panic attacks I'd had in front of neighbors. How I accused Clara of faking a pregnancy and locked them out without reason. They even cited the binder on my kitchen table, calling it erratic evidence gathering, often seen in paranoia-related decline. I laughed when I read that part. Then I stopped laughing. Because this wasn't just a smear attempt. This was a legal maneuver. They weren't trying to win sympathy anymore. They were trying to take everything by proving I wasn't fit to keep it. And the hearing? It was scheduled in 6 days. I called my lawyer. She wasn't surprised. "They've overplayed their hand," she said. "This is exactly what we've been preparing for." I took a deep breath. Then let's bury them with the truth. The next week moved like a war in slow motion. Every day, we sharpened a new weapon. Monday, my neuropsych evaluation was notarized and entered into court records. The specialist included an attached video summary where I recited and explained my entire medical history and current medication schedule, without notes. Tuesday, we submitted character statements. Not from friends. From professionals, my accountant, my doctor, my condo board president. Each one confirmed that I had been active, sharp, and fully self-sufficient in every interaction. Wednesday, the security footage from the unauthorized filming was certified and time-stamped by an expert technician. The footage clearly showed them entering my home while I was away and matched the Instagram video they'd posted just days later. Thursday, we sent in my updated will. Fully executed, filed, and backed by a capacity letter. It made it very clear. Anyone attempting to use guardianship for personal gain would be irrevocably disinherited. Friday, I picked out my outfit for court. Navy blouse, gray wool slacks, hair done, nails clean, binder in hand, and a recording device in my purse just in case. I wasn't just defending myself. I was setting precedent. The hearing was held in a quiet courtroom, tucked inside a civic building that smelled like coffee and printer toner. Clara and Alex sat to my left. Clara wore pale blue, hair tied back, no bump, still no proof of pregnancy. Alex had a legal pad and a smug expression he thought passed as professional. They looked rehearsed, but I looked ready. When the judge entered, I stood tall. I introduced myself clearly, confidently. I used no notes. I referenced the evidence my lawyer had submitted. I smiled when the judge asked me to summarize my understanding of the proceedings. And then I handed him the binder. "This," I said, "is not paranoia. It's preparation." He nodded, then turned to Clara. "Ms. Jameson," he said, "do you have medical documentation confirming your mother's cognitive decline?" Clara swallowed hard. "We've observed." I asked for documentation. Silence. Alex jumped in. "We have social media examples. Screenshots. Her behavior has been erratic." My lawyer stood. "And yet, they filmed in her home without permission, lied about a pregnancy to solicit public sympathy, and attempted to file deed documents without her consent. We have recordings, timestamps, and certified footage." The judge held up a hand. "I've seen enough." He flipped through the documents one more time, glanced at the still photo of Clara's sonogram, clearly matched to a generic app sample, and closed the binder. "Ms. Jameson, Mr. Reyes, your petition is denied. Not only is there no evidence of incapacitation, but there is substantial cause to believe this was an attempt to exploit a vulnerable adult for personal financial gain." Clara gasped. "That's not fair." "This hearing is over," the judge said. He turned to me. "Ms. Lawson, if you wish to pursue a restraining order or file civil action, you are well within your rights." I nodded once. Noted. Clara was already in tears. Alex looked stunned. I picked up my binder, thanked the court, and walked out with my lawyer beside me. We didn't speak until we were outside. "You were flawless," she said. I looked up at the blue sky and exhaled for the first time in what felt like months. "No," I said. "I was just finally heard." That evening, Clara posted again. A vague, tearful video. No specifics. Just grief-stained eyes and a quote over soft music. Some people would rather lose their family than admit they need help. It didn't go viral. People were starting to see through it. The comments were different now. "Why did you try to take her house, though? She literally proved you were lying. This is manipulative." And for once, Clara didn't respond. She didn't post again for weeks. And the silence? That was louder than anything she'd ever filmed. I poured myself a cup of tea that night, opened the sliding door, and sat on the patio with the binder on my lap. I didn't need it anymore, not really, but I kept it, not as a weapon, as a reminder that my silence was never weakness. It was a trap. and they walked straight into it. The first thing I did was change the locks again. Not because I had to, because I needed the sound. The click, the seal, the finality of it. A steel confirmation that no one walked through my door unless I said so. I watched the locksmith work. Same man as before. He didn't ask questions this time, just nodded politely and said, "Glad it all worked out, ma'am." It hadn't worked out. Not really, but it had closed. And that was something. The house felt different after the hearing. Not haunted, not heavy, just quiet. I walked through it like I was meeting it for the first time, room by room. I opened every drawer, checked every cabinet, found fingerprints of their intentions still lingering in the details. A rolled-up measuring tape in the kitchen drawer, swatches of neutral paint in the hall closet, a baby-themed calendar shoved between books on the shelf, still set to a due date that would never come. I gathered it all into a cardboard box, labeled it, "False Starts." Then I took it outside, and I burned it. The flames didn't crackle dramatically. They hissed softly, like sighs releasing from the box. I stood over them in my bathrobe and slippers, arms crossed, watching it all turn to ash. The fake sonogram, the nursery sketches, the fabric swatches Clara once held up beside my curtains like she had the right. All of it. Gone. When the fire died down, I stirred the ashes with a stick until they looked like a blank page. Then I went inside and cleaned. Not out of compulsion, out of ritual. Every surface, every corner. Polished. Reset. Reclaimed. I even pulled the sheets off my bed and replaced them with a crisp new set I'd ordered 2 weeks earlier, but hadn't dared open. Lavender cotton. Soft. Untouched. Mine. Around midnight, my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "You didn't have to do this. We could have figured it out." Clara's devastated. I stared at it for a full minute, then typed one sentence. "You should have thought about that before you trespassed and lied to the entire internet." I hovered over send. Then deleted it. They didn't get to hear my voice anymore. Not even in pixels. I turned the phone off, placed it in the drawer, shut it, and slept through the night for the first time in months. The next morning, I opened the windows, let the light in. I brewed strong coffee, toasted bread, played a record I hadn't touched since my husband passed, Aretha Franklin, vinyl crackling like it was alive. And I danced. Alone. On the hardwood Clara said was too cold for babies. Spinning in the sunlight, holding my coffee like a wine glass. I wasn't celebrating. I was exhaling. Later that day, Marcy came by. She brought lemon bars and a printout of the local newsletter. "Did you see this?" she said, tapping the paper. I took it. "Read it." There, under Community Highlights, Donna Lawson awarded Community Independence Advocacy Grant for protecting seniors against coercion. I blinked. "What?" Marcy grinned. "Your lawyer submitted your story anonymously to the board. They turned it into a case study. You're going to be featured next month. You might even be asked to speak." I shook my head slowly. I wasn't trying to. "I know," she said, "but you did." That night, I logged into a new email account I'd created, one no one knew about. I started writing something. Not to Clara. Not to the judge. To the women I hadn't met yet. The ones still trapped in conversations where silence felt like safety. The ones who hadn't built their binder yet. I wrote about my story, every step, and then I clicked Save Draft. Because the story wasn't done. Not yet. The next day, I removed Clara and Alex from the emergency contact forms at my doctor's office, insurance agency, and banking institutions. I replaced them with Marcy and Iris. Then I took the final step. I went to the bank, pulled out the safety deposit box key, and transferred ownership of the house into a trust, not to Clara, not to any future heirs. To a fund called the Lawson Foundation for Independent Living, a registered entity that would, upon my death, convert the home into a short-term housing unit for women escaping family-based financial abuse. It wouldn't be sold. It wouldn't be inherited. It would become protection. My home wouldn't be Clara's nursery. It would be someone else's sanctuary. That evening, the doorbell rang. I froze. Old habit. But when I checked the peephole, it wasn't Clara. It was Melissa, my niece. She held a takeout bag and a crooked smile.
"Heard you won," she said.
Thought I'd bring noodles. I opened the door.
"I didn't win," I said.
I walked away standing. Melissa raised a brow. Same thing. We ate on the floor, watched a terrible movie, laughed until I forgot what grief tasted like. And when she left, she hugged me tight and whispered, "I always knew you were stronger than them." I believed her. For the first time, I believed it too. It happened on a Sunday. Cloudless. Quiet. A day so still it felt like the world had hit pause. I had just finished sweeping the porch and was watering the mint when I heard it. 3 sharp knocks on the front door. Not the tentative kind. Not the type you use when you're unsure if you're welcome. The kind people use when they think they still belong. I already knew who it was. I took my time walking to the door. No rush. No fear. I checked the peephole. Clara. Alone. She looked smaller somehow, shoulders hunched, dressed down, no makeup, no fake smile. Just her. But not the her I remembered. Not the child I raised. This was someone else. Someone who thought love was leverage and silence was surrender. I opened the door halfway. "Hi, Mom," she said, voice thin. I didn't speak. She swallowed. Looked down. "I know you probably don't want to see me, but I had to come." I waited. "I lost the partnership," she said suddenly. "At work. They said the video made the wrong kind of noise." Still, I said nothing. "And Alex, he's staying at his brother's now." Her eyes darted up. "He said I went too far." She was unraveling, but not in the way she had hoped I would. She wanted to be seen as the one left behind now, the victim of her own story. I wanted to explain," she whispered. "I didn't mean to make you feel used." "You didn't make me feel used," I said quietly. "You used me." Her mouth opened. Closed. I didn't fill the silence. "I panicked," she said. "We wanted the house because it felt safe. Familiar. We didn't think you'd care." That stopped me. "You didn't think I'd care about the house your father died in? About the keys you took without asking? About the lies you turned into hashtags?" Tears welled in her eyes. I didn't know how to ask for help. I almost believed her. But I'd seen her ask. Not with words. With entitlement. With public pressure. With manipulation. With staged sonograms and forged declarations. "You didn't ask," I said. "You assumed. And then when I didn't say yes, you tried to force a yes." She dropped her head. "I know. I was wrong." There it was. The first real thing she'd said in months. She looked back up. "I don't want the house anymore." I blinked. "No.
No.
I just want a chance to fix things."
Fix.
Like a broken faucet. Like a loose hinge. Like this wasn't scorched earth. I stepped fully outside now, letting the screen door click behind me. The breeze pulled at the edge of her cardigan. "There's nothing to fix, Clara," I said, calm but final. "There's only what you tried to break, and what I rebuilt without you." She nodded slowly, lips pressed tight. "I just thought maybe one day," her voice cracked, "you'd want to meet the baby." My chest tightened. There it was again. That final thread she thought might still work. But I didn't flinch. I didn't ask for proof. I didn't chase the truth anymore. Because that's how she kept the door ajar. With a maybe. A what if.
"You can send a photo," I said.
And then I turned to go inside. "Wait," she said. I paused at the threshold, hand on the doorframe. "I loved you," she whispered. I looked at her over my shoulder. "I still do," I replied. "But I love myself more now." And I closed the door. I didn't cry. I didn't collapse. I went to the kitchen and made tea. Because peace doesn't always arrive like thunder. Sometimes it walks in the front door, shakes your hand, and sits down like it was always meant to be there. I opened my notebook, the one I kept next to the fridge now, and wrote. She knocked. I answered, but I didn't let her in. Then I turned the page. The next day, Melissa stopped by with her daughter. She toddled up the porch steps in little pink sneakers, giggling, holding a dandelion like it was treasure. Melissa handed me a drawing she'd made, crayon scribbles, suns and flowers. "She says this is you," Melissa laughed. "You have a crown made of mint leaves." I pinned it on the fridge. A real legacy. One not stolen, not forced, just freely given. That night, I emailed Iris the final documents. The cabin up north was nearly ready. The renters had moved out. The air smelled of pine and lake water. I told her I'd come for the summer.
Just to rest.
To write.
To think.
And maybe, just maybe, to finally forget the sound of Clara's voice when she said, "We're just so grateful you agreed." Because I never did.
And now?
I never would. I left on a Wednesday. No grand farewell. No final showdown. Just a zippered suitcase, a packed car, and a slip of paper taped to the inside of my door. If you're reading this, the house is already gone. Just like the silence I let you borrow for far too long. I locked up one last time and didn't look back. The drive was 4 hours of stillness. No music. No podcasts. Just the hum of the tires and the occasional exhale I hadn't realized I'd been holding since Clara's first announcement at dinner. When I arrived at the cabin, the sun was just beginning to fall behind the pines, spilling gold through the tall windows. It smelled like dust, cedar, and unopened potential. I didn't unpack. I just stood there, palms on the kitchen counter, feeling the weight of no one else's expectations pressing down on me. The house wasn't big.
It didn't need to be.
2 bedrooms, 1 bath, a fireplace that hadn't been used in years, a garden that needed taming, a life that hadn't been lived yet, but was ready now. And this time it was mine. Every inch of it. Not inherited, not gifted, not signed over under duress or guilt or false smiles.
Mine.
3 days into my stay, I received a letter. Handwritten. No return address. Inside, a baby photo. The real kind this time. A hospital tag. A timestamp. A newborn face. On the back, a single sentence. "I'm sorry. Her name is Grace." No signature. No apology beyond that one word.
I stared at it for a long time.
Not because it hurt, but because it didn't. It didn't twist my stomach. It didn't bend my heart. I placed the photo inside a drawer I rarely used and returned to watering the tomatoes on the porch. Grace would grow up knowing her mother had once tried to take something that wasn't hers. But she'd also grow up knowing the woman who refused to be taken. And maybe that mattered more than a rocking chair in a nursery that was never meant to be. A month passed. I built a fence around the garden, hung wind chimes by the porch, taught myself to bake something that didn't come from a box. I got a letter from the board back home. The Lawson Foundation for Independent Living had received its first grant, $25,000 from an anonymous donor who'd read the court filings. The trust was now fully operational. I cried when I read that. Not loud, not long, just enough to feel it. Because that was the legacy Clara would never understand. Not square footage, not title deeds, but protection. I had built something that couldn't be stolen, sold, or edited into a reel for sympathy clicks. Something that would outlive every fake Instagram caption they'd ever posted. I saw Melissa again that summer. She brought Grace. The baby gripped my thumb like she knew who I was. Not a villain, not a bank account, just me. "I don't want her to grow up thinking love is a transaction," Melissa whispered as she rocked her. "I want her to learn silence isn't surrender." I nodded. She will. We sat on the porch until the sun disappeared. And when they left, I waved like a woman with nothing to prove. Because I had already won. The last scene wasn't cinematic. Just me, standing in my garden, dirt under my nails, breath steady. There was no music. No speech. Just the whisper of wind through thyme and lavender and the distant sound of a bird tracing a lazy arc across the lake. My phone buzzed once. Unknown number. I didn't check. I turned it off and slid it into the drawer beside the baby photo, now sealed inside a frame that said simply, "We begin again." If you made it this far, thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this story with someone who needs to remember Silence isn't weakness, it's just the pause before the truth arrives.